Ancient seawalls built 2,000 years ago are getting stronger with time and seawater, unlike many modern marine concrete structures. There was a fire so potent it could burn on water, and its secret formula was guarded so fiercely it died, with an empire terrifying enemies for centuries. Imagine a vibrant blue paint created by an ancient civilization that stays brilliant for over 1,000 years, shrugging off acids and weathering that would destroy other colors. Craftsmen once forged swords with mesmerizing, watery patterns and legendary cutting power, using techniques that modern science still struggles to perfectly retouch. A single cup from ancient Rome can appear jade green in one light and blood red in another, a trick of nanoparticle technology lost for ages. Number 10. Mayan Blue's enduring brilliance. Imagine a color so tough, so vibrant that it laughs in the face of centuries of sun, rain, and even harsh chemicals. That's Mayan Blue for you. This striking bright turquoise to azure pigment was cooked up by the Maya civilization in Mesoamerica starting way back around 300 CE, and they kept using it right up until the 16th century, even after the Spanish conquest. You can still see it today, looking astonishingly fresh on ancient murals, pottery, incense burners, and even on human remains prepared for sacrifice. It's a testament to a truly remarkable piece of ancient chemical artistry. What made Mayan Blue so special wasn't just its beautiful color, but its incredible durability. Most natural pigments, especially organic ones, fade over time or react badly to acids and other solvents. But Mayan Blue, it's practically indestructible. Scientists have zapped it with nitric acid, tried to bleach it, and exposed it to all sorts of harsh conditions, and it just stays blue. This resilience has puzzled researchers for decades. How did an ancient civilization, without modern chemistry labs, create such a super pigment? The secret, as it turns out, lies in a unique combination of organic and inorganic materials. The Maya somehow figured out how to fuse indigo, a plant-based dye, with a special type of clay called palygorskite. This wasn't just a simple mix. They heated the mixture, causing the indigo molecules to become trapped within the microscopic, channel-like structures of the clay. This process created a new, incredibly stable organo-metallic complex. Palygorskite clay essentially acts like a protective cage for the indigo, shielding it from the elements and chemical attack. Finding palygorskite clay itself required specific geological knowledge, as it's not common everywhere. The Maya likely sourced it from particular deposits in the Yucatan Peninsula. Then there was the indigo, derived from the leaves of the indigofera, a fruticosa plant, a process that itself involves careful fermentation and extraction. The real magic, however, was in the heating process. Precise temperatures and methods they used to bind these two components together so effectively are still subjects of study. Did they use specific types of kilns? Was there a ritual element to its creation, given its frequent use in sacred contexts? Traces of copal incense have been found with Mayan Blue, suggesting it might have been part of the recipe or the ritual of making it. While modern scientists can now recreate Mayan Blue in a lab by identifying and combining the core ingredients, the exact art of the original Mayan production, especially its variations and the scale at which they produced it, holds many unanswered questions. How did they achieve such consistent results? What were the subtle variations in their recipes for different applications? The original Maya artisans didn't leave behind instruction manuals. They passed down their knowledge through generations, a chain of expertise that was eventually broken. So, while we can make something very similar, the full depth of their understanding and the intuitive mastery they possessed in creating the super blue pigment remains a whisper from the past. Number 9. Ancient Egyptian faïence's lost luster. Walk through any museum with an Egyptian collection, and you'll be captivated by tiny blue-green statues, vibrant beads, and shimmering tiles. This material, often mistaken for pottery or glass, is Egyptian faience. It's one of the oldest known types of glazed ceramic, dating back as far as 4000 BCE, and it's famous for its brilliant colors, especially an intense blue that seemed to capture the very essence of the Nile or the sky. The Egyptians called it yehenet, meaning that which is brilliant or dazzling, and they certainly knew how to make it live up to its name. What makes faience so fascinating isn't just its age or beauty, but the clever technology behind it. It's not made from clay like typical pottery. Instead, its core is composed mainly of crushed quartz or sand, mixed with small amounts of lime and an alkali like plant ash or natron. This core was then coated with a glaze that, upon firing, would fuse and create a glassy, colorful surface. The most iconic color, that vivid Egyptian blue, was achieved using copper compounds. They also produced faience in greens, whites, yellows, and even purples. The real artistry lay in how they applied the glaze and fired the objects. The Egyptians developed several sophisticated techniques. One was efflorescence glazing, where the glazing materials were mixed into the quartz paste itself. As the object dried, these salts would migrate to the surface and then vitrify, turn glassy in the kiln. Another method was cementation glazing, where the object was packed in a glazing powder and fired. The powder would melt and fuse onto the surface. They also directly painted on a glaze slurry. Each method required a deep understanding of materials and firing temperatures, typically between 800 and 1000 degrees Celsius. Imagine achieving that control with ancient kilns. While modern artisans can, of course, produce faience, and we understand the basic chemistry, recreating the exact qualities of some ancient Egyptian pieces, especially the vibrancy and consistency of certain blues on a large scale, presents challenges. The specific recipes, the precise proportions of ingredients, the source and purity of their raw materials, like the copper for the blue or the exact composition of their plant ash alkali, and the nuances of their firing processes are not fully known. Ancient texts offer few clues about the precise manufacturing steps. They seem to have an almost intuitive mastery passed down through workshops that allowed them to produce stunning results consistently. Consider the thousands of blue faience, shabti figures found in tombs, or the brilliant blue tiles that once adorned palaces and temples, like those in the step pyramid of Djoser. Producing such quantities with such quality implies a well-established and highly skilled industry. Replicating the subtle variations in hue, the depth of the color, and the specific textures seen in the best ancient examples is an ongoing area of study. It's a reminder that ancient technology wasn't always primitive. Sometimes it was incredibly sophisticated, and its secrets aren't always easily unlocked. Even with all our modern science, the dazzling legacy of Egyptian faience continues to shine, holding on to some of its ancient brilliant mysteries. Number 8. Stradivarius violins and their elusive sound. The name Stradivarius, it whispers of unparalleled musical beauty, of instruments so perfect they seem to possess a soul. Antonio Stradivari, working in Cremona, Italy, during the late 17th and early 18th centuries, crafted violins, violas, and cellos that are legendary. Around 650 of his instruments survive today, and they are among the most prized and expensive musical instruments in the world, sought after by the greatest virtuosos. But what is it about a Stradivarius that makes it sound so special, and why has it proven so incredibly difficult to consistently refine? Musicians and listeners describe the sound of a Stradivarius as having a unique combination of brilliance, power, clarity, and warmth. They project beautifully in large concert halls, yet can also whisper with intimate sweetness. It's a sound that seems to adapt to the player, offering an incredible range of tonal colors. For centuries, luthiers, violin makers, have tried to uncover the secret of Stradivari. Was it the wood, the varnish, the shape, the specific techniques of craftsmanship? The wood is certainly a key factor. Stradivari used maple for the back, ribs, and neck, and spruce for the top. It's believed that the spruce may have come from trees that grew during a period of unusually cold climate, known as the Maunder Minimum, roughly 1645 to 1715. This colder period could have resulted in slower tree growth, leading to denser wood with specific acoustic properties. Some theories suggest that the wood might have been treated, perhaps soaked in mineral solutions or exposed to fungi, though evidence for this is debated. Then there's the varnish. For a long time, the varnish was thought to be the magical ingredient. Stories circulated of secret recipes involving exotic ingredients like amber, honey, or even egg whites. Modern analysis, however, has shown that Stradivari's varnish was actually quite simple, similar to varnishes used by other makers of his time, typically a base of oil and pine resin with various pigments. While the varnish protects the wood and contributes to the instrument's beauty, most scientists now believe it plays a less direct role in the primary sound production than previously thought, though it can affect damping and surface vibration. Craftsmanship itself was, of course, exceptional. Stradivari was a master of precision, the arching of the top and back plates, the thicknessing of the wood in different areas, the shape of the F-holes. All these elements were meticulously executed and contribute to the instrument's acoustics. He experimented with his designs throughout his long career, constantly refining them. Despite countless studies including chemical analysis, X-rays, CT scans, and acoustic testing, no single secret has been definitively identified. Modern luthiers can create outstanding instruments, some of which can even fool experts in blind listening tests. However, the consistency with which Stradivari produced instruments of such exceptional quality and that specific blend of tonal characteristics that players rave about remains an elusive target. Perhaps the secret isn't one thing, but a perfect storm of factors: exceptional wood, masterful craftsmanship, subtle treatments or aging processes we don't fully understand, and the intuitive genius of Stradivari himself. The art of creating that specific sound, time and time again, is something that continues to fascinate and challenge. Number 7. Mochica whistling vessels and their ghostly tunes. Imagine pouring water from a ceramic bottle, and instead of a simple gurgle, you hear a bird chirp, a jaguar roar, or a human voice crying out. This wasn't magic. It was the incredible acoustic engineering of the Mochica, or Moche, civilization, who thrived on the northern coast of Peru from about 100 to 800 CE. Among their many artistic achievements, which include stunning metalwork and intricate pottery, are their whistling vessels, ceramic bottles that produce superb and varied sounds. These vessels are more than just curiosities. They are sophisticated acoustic devices. They typically consist of two chambers connected by a duct. One chamber is open at the top, where you pour water in or out, and the other is sealed, except for a small hole leading to a whistle, often cleverly concealed within a sculpted figure on top, perhaps an animal, a human, or a deity. When water is poured into or out of the open chamber, the change in water level displaces air, forcing it through the whistle and creating a sound. Some vessels produce a single clear tone, while others can produce multiple interacting tones, creating complex harmonies or mimicking specific animal calls with eerie accuracy. The true artistry lies in the precise construction and tuning. The Mochica potters had to understand how the size and shape of the chambers, the diameter of the connecting ducts, and the form of the whistle itself would affect the pitch, timbre, and loudness of the sound. They crafted these vessels to produce specific sounds, For example, a vessel topped with a bird figure might chirp, while one with a monkey might screech. Some even have two whistles that create a binaural beat effect, a kind of acoustic shimmer when they sound together. How did they achieve this level of acoustic sophistication? We don't have their blueprints or instruction manuals. The knowledge was likely passed down through generations of master potters. They must have used a process of trial and error, guided by a deep, intuitive understanding of sound and fluid dynamics. Each vessel was essentially a custom-tuned instrument. Clay itself, the firing temperatures, and the shrinkage of the material during drying and firing all had to be accounted for to achieve the desired acoustic result. While archaeologists and acousticians have studied these vessels extensively and can explain the general principles of how they work, replicating the exact sounds and the subtle nuances of the originals is incredibly challenging. Modern attempts can create whistling pots, but achieving the same clarity, specific pitches, or complex harmonic interactions found in the best mochica examples often falls short. The mochica weren't just making novelty items. These vessels likely played important roles in rituals and ceremonies. The sounds they produced could have been used to evoke spirits, accompany dances, or create a specific emotional atmosphere. The purpose of these whistling vessels is still debated. Were they toys, musical instruments, ritual objects used to communicate with the spirit world? Perhaps all of these. What is certain is that they represent a remarkable fusion of art and science, a testament to the ingenuity of a people who could make clay sing. The ghostly tunes of these ancient vessels continue to echo, carrying the lost knowledge of their creators. Number 6. The Antikythera, mechanism's ancient genius. Imagine finding an ancient corroded lump of bronze at the bottom of the sea, only to discover it's a complex geared machine far beyond anything you thought the ancient world was capable of. That's the story of the Antikythera mechanism, an astonishing baked recovered from a Roman-era shipwreck off the coast of the Greek island of Antikythera in 1901. Dating back to somewhere between 205 and 60 BC. This device is often described as the world's first analog computer. Its sophistication and complexity were unmatched for over 1,000 years, until the astronomical clocks of medieval Europe began to appear. What exactly was this intricate assembly of at least 30 and possibly as many as 72 hand-cut bronze gears? Through decades of painstaking research, including X-ray tomography and surface imaging, scientists have pieced together its purpose. The Antikythera mechanism was an incredibly advanced astronomical calculator, could predict the positions of the sun and moon, track the lunar phases, predict eclipses, and even mark the timing of Panhellenic games like the Olympics. It displayed this information on several dials, with pointers moving across intricately marked scales. The front dials showed the Greek zodiac and an Egyptian calendar, with pointers for the sun and moon. A lunar phase display, a small ball, half silvered and half black, rotated to show the moon's current phase. The back of the mechanism featured two large spiral dials. One, the Metonic dial, showed a 19-year calendar cycle used to reconcile solar years and lunar months. The other, the Saros dial, predicted solar and lunar eclipses over an 18-year, 11-day, 8-hour period. It even had a smaller Exeligmos dial to account for the extra 8 hours in the Saros cycle, requiring adjustments over 3 cycles. The sheer genius lies in the gear trains. The mechanism used differential gears which allow for the addition or subtraction of angular velocities. This kind of gearing was previously thought to have been invented in the 16th century. Precision required to design and cut these tiny interlocking bronze gears by hand, with teeth sometimes just a millimeter long, is mind-boggling for its era. The inscriptions on the mechanism, effectively a user manual, reveal a deep understanding of astronomy and mathematics. Why is the knowledge to create such a device considered a lost art? Because nothing else like it has ever been found from that period or for many centuries afterwards. It's a technological outlier. The skills and theoretical understanding required to conceive, design, and construct the Antikythera mechanism were clearly present in the Hellenistic world, likely stemming from figures like Archimedes. But this knowledge seems to have vanished, or at least not been applied to similar mechanical creations that survive. The chain of knowledge transmission was broken. Did a specific school of artisans or engineers hold this knowledge? Was it a closely guarded secret? Or were such devices simply too expensive or specialized to become common? While modern researchers have built working reconstructions of the Antikythera mechanism, these are based on reverse engineering the surviving fragments. The original design process, the tools used, the specific mathematical models employed by its unknown creators. These are still subjects of intense study and speculation. We can retuggy the function, but the art of conceiving and building such a thing from scratch, using only the knowledge and tools available over 2 millennia ago, represents a peak of ancient ingenuity that was tragically lost to time, only to be rediscovered by chance. Number 5. Tyrian purple, the color of emperors. Imagine a dye so precious that only emperors and the absolute elite could afford. Color so rich and enduring that it became synonymous with power, royalty, and divinity. This was Tyrian purple, also known as royal purple or imperial purple. For centuries, this vibrant, deep reddish purple dye was one of the most expensive commodities in the ancient world, worth more than its weight in gold. Production was a complex, smelly, and incredibly labor-intensive process, mastered by the Phoenicians from the city of Tyre, hence its name. The source of Tyrian purple was not a plant or a mineral, but several species of predatory sea snails, primarily Bolinus brandaris, Hexaplex trunculus, and Stramonita haemastoma. These snails, found in the Mediterranean Sea, secrete a mucus from their hypobranchial gland. Initially, this secretion is colorless or yellowish, but when exposed to sunlight and air, it undergoes a photochemical reaction and transforms into the prized purple dye. The process of extracting and preparing the dye was no simple task. Thousands upon thousands of snails were required to produce even a small amount of dye. Ancient accounts describe how the snails were harvested, their glands carefully extracted, or the snails crushed whole, and then steeped in vats of salt water. This mixture was then heated gently for several days, allowing enzymes to break down the precursors and develop the color. Different snail species, different treatment methods, and different exposure to light could produce a range of shades from a deep violet to a reddish purple. The smell from these dye works was reportedly horrendous, leading to them often being located on the outskirts of cities. What made Tyrian purple so special, apart from its rarity and association with status, was its quality. It was incredibly light-fast, meaning it didn't fade easily in the sun. In fact, some said it became even more vibrant with weathering and sunlight. It was also resistant to washing. These properties made it far superior to other purple dyes available in antiquity, which were often made from plants and faded quickly. Complex molecular structure of the dye, primarily 6,6-dibromo-indigo, is responsible for its unique color and stability. The art of making Tyrian purple was a closely guarded secret for centuries, primarily by the Phoenicians and later by the Romans and Byzantines. However, after the fall of Constantinople in 1453, the large-scale production of Tyrian purple largely ceased in the West. The exact methods, particularly the nuances of achieving specific shades and the most efficient extraction techniques, began to fade from common knowledge. Cheaper alternatives, like orchil, a lichen-based purple, and eventually synthetic dyes developed in the 19th century made the costly snail-based process economically unviable. While chemists in the 20th century managed to analyze the chemical structure of Tyrian purple and even synthesize 6,6-dibrome, indigo, and traditional methods of extraction from snails have been revived on a very small experimental scale, the original art, in its full industrial and cultural context, is gone. The sheer scale of the ancient industry, the precise knowledge of snail habitats, the traditional recipes passed down through generations of dyers, and the societal structures that supported such an extravagant production are things we can only read about. Recreating a few grams of the dye is one thing. Reviving the entire ancient art form with its incredible economic and cultural significance is another. The legend of its imperial hue, however, lives on. Number 4. The Lycurgus Cup's nanotechnological magic. Imagine a drinking cup that seems to hold a secret. In reflected light, say from a lamp in a room, it appears a murky jade green, but when light shines through it from behind, it glows a stunning, translucent blood red. This isn't a magic trick from a fantasy novel. It's the Lycurgus Cup, a 4th century Roman glass chalice that is one of the most astounding examples of ancient nanotechnology. This unique optical property is known as tychroism, and how the Roman artisans achieved it remained a mystery for centuries after its rediscovery. The cup itself is a work of art, depicting a scene from the myth of King Lycurgus of Thrace, who is shown entangled in vines by Dionysus, the god of wine. But its true marvel lies in its glass. It wasn't until the 1990s, with the advent of powerful electron microscopes, that scientists were able to unravel its secret. The Roman glassmakers had somehow managed to impregnate the glass with nondos of gold and silver, ground down to an incredibly fine size, around 50 nanometers in diameter, which is less than 1,000th the size of a grain of salt. It's the precise size and mixture of these metallic noterts and how they interact with light that creates the dichroic effect. When light reflects off the surface of the cup, like light from the front, the gold nongers primarily reflect greenish light. However, when light passes through the glass, these same nondoles scatter red light much more effectively. The silver particles also play a role, likely enhancing the effect. The Romans couldn't have seen these nondoles, of course. They must have achieved this stunning result through generations of experimentation, careful observation, and perhaps a bit of accidental genius. How did they do it? The exact recipe and technique are lost. They would have needed to add tiny amounts of gold and silver dust, perhaps by dissolving gold and silver in aqua regia and then precipitating it out in a controlled way to get fine particles to the molten glass mixture. Then, the heating and cooling process would have been critical. The temperature and duration of firing and the rate of cooling would all affect how these nonders formed and dispersed within the glass. It was an incredibly delicate balancing act. Too little metal or the wrong particle size, and the effect wouldn't work. Too much, and the glass might become opaque or discolored. The Lycurgus cup is the only complete example of this type of dichroic glass known from the Roman period, although fragments of other dichroic glass objects have been found suggesting it wasn't a complete one-off, but rather an extremely rare and highly prized luxury item. Perhaps it was made in a single workshop that held the secret, a secret that was eventually lost. The skills to produce such an object were likely confined to a very small number of master artisans. While modern science now understands the principles behind the Lycurgus cup's color-changing abilities, and researchers have even managed to create new materials using similar non-particle technology diagnostics or sensors, recreating the Lycurgus cup itself with its specific article quality using 4th century methods is another matter. It's a stunning reminder that ancient artisans, through empirical knowledge and incredible skill, could achieve effects that would baffle scientists for over 1,500 years. The cup remains a luminous testament to a lost art of nano-engineering before the term even existed. Number 3. Roman seawater, concrete. That gets stronger with age. When we think of ancient Rome, we picture magnificent structures. The Pantheon, with its vast dome, colossal aqueducts marching across the landscape, and sturdy amphitheaters that have withstood millennia. Key ingredient in this enduring legacy is Roman concrete, or opus caementicium. But there's a particular type of Roman concrete, the kind they used for harbors, breakwaters, and other marine structures, that holds a truly remarkable secret. It actually gets stronger over time when exposed to seawater. This is a stark contrast to modern concrete, which tends to degrade in harsh marine environments. For years, engineers and scientists marveled at the durability of Roman maritime concrete. Structures like the harbor at Caesarea Maritima, built by Herod the Great under Roman influence, or the Portus Cosanus in Italy, have survived 2,000 years of relentless waves and chemical attack from seawater. How did they do it? The recipe involved a mix of lime, volcanic ash, known as pozzolana, often from areas like Pozzuoli near Mount Vesuvius, and volcanic rock aggregate, when mixed with water, particularly seawater. This combination set off a unique series of chemical reactions. The key was the pozzolanic reaction. The volcanic ash, rich in silica and alumina, reacted with the calcium hydroxide from the lime in the presence of water to form highly stable and durable cementitious compounds. One particularly important mineral that forms is aluminous tobermorite, all-tobermorite, a rare and incredibly strong crystalline mineral. Modern analysis of samples from ancient Roman marine concrete has shown that all-tobermorite crystals grew within the concrete matrix over centuries, effectively reinforcing it and making it more resistant to cracking and erosion. Seawater, rather than weakening the concrete, actually helped these beneficial crystals to grow, filling pores and cracks. Another fascinating discovery concerns the lime clasts, little chunks of lime found in the concrete. It was once thought these were signs of poor mixing. However, recent research suggests these lime clasts play a vital role in a self-healing process. When tiny cracks form in the concrete, water can seep in and interact with these lime clasts. This can trigger recrystallization of calcium carbonate or the formation of other minerals that fill the cracks, effectively healing the damage. This self-healing ability contributes significantly to the concrete's longevity. While we understand these chemical processes, now replicating the exact long-term performance of ancient Roman seawater concrete is not straightforward. The Romans had access to specific types of volcanic ash with unique mineral compositions. Their methods of selecting, preparing, and mixing the ingredients were developed through centuries of empirical knowledge. They didn't have our modern chemical labs, but they had keen observation and a tradition of engineering excellence. They knew which materials worked best in which environments. The specific techniques for placing the concrete in underwater forms, often using wooden caissons, were also part of this lost art. Modern efforts are underway to develop new types of concrete inspired by the Roman model, aiming for greater durability and sustainability, especially for marine applications. Scientists are studying the exact mineralogical compositions and microstructures of the ancient material to learn its secrets. However, the Roman approach was holistic, combining material science with practical engineering in a way that was deeply attuned to the local environment. The widespread intuitive knowledge of how to create this incredibly resilient material, a skill that built an empire's maritime infrastructure, represents a profound art that we are still working to fully understand and emulate. Their concrete wasn't just mixed, it was crafted for eternity. Number 2. Greek fire, the Byzantine superweapon. Imagine a terrifying, sticky, liquid fire that could be sprayed from siphons, clung to ships and men, and most terrifyingly could not be extinguished by water. In fact, water sometimes seemed to make it burn more fiercely. This was Greek fire, the legendary incendiary weapon of the Byzantine Empire. For centuries, from its first recorded use in the late 7th century CE, Greek fire gave the Byzantines a decisive naval advantage, striking fear into the hearts of their enemies, including Arab fleets attempting to conquer Constantinople. Its formula was one of the most closely guarded military secrets in history, so secret that it was eventually lost. The exact composition of Greek fire remains a subject of intense debate among historians and scientists. No definitive recipe has ever been found. Ancient sources describe its effects vividly. It produced thick smoke, a loud roaring noise, and could burn on water. It was deployed using siphons or pumps mounted on the prows of Byzantine warships, essentially early flamethrowers. It was also reportedly used in hand grenades made of earthenware or poured onto enemy ships. Numerous theories have been proposed for its ingredients. Most scholars believe it was a petroleum-based mixture. Naphtha, a flammable liquid hydrocarbon, is a likely candidate for the main fuel. Other possible ingredients mentioned in various analyses or ancient texts include quicklime, calcium oxide, sulfur, resin, like pine resin for stickiness, bitumen, saltpeter, potassium nitrate, and phosphorus. The idea that quicklime was involved is intriguing because quicklime reacts exothermically with water producing heat. If it was a key component, it might explain why water didn't extinguish the fire and could even intensify it. Some theories suggest a self-igniting mixture, perhaps involving calcium phosphide, which reacts with water to produce phosphine gas that ignites spontaneously in air. The Byzantine emperors guarded the secret of Greek fire with extreme jealousy. Constantine VII Porphyrogenitus, a 10th century emperor, wrote in his book De Administrando Imperio that the formula was revealed by an angel to the first Christian Roman emperor, Constantine the Great, and that its disclosure was strictly forbidden. He warned his son and successor that any attempt to reveal it would incur divine wrath. This intense secrecy, while effective in preventing enemies from replicating it for a long time, ultimately contributed to its loss. As the Byzantine Empire declined, and the specific knowledge was held by fewer and fewer people, the chain of transmission was eventually broken. By the time of the Fourth Crusade in 1204, which devastated Constantinople, true Greek fire seems to have already disappeared from the Byzantine arsenal, or at least its effective deployment system was lost. Later, incendiary mixtures used by various powers were likely different and less potent. Attempts to recreate Greek fire based on historical descriptions and chemical analysis have yielded mixed results, while various flammable concoctions can be made, producing something that precisely matches all the described properties, burning on water, being projected effectively from a siphon. The specific roar and smoke is extremely difficult. The art wasn't just in the chemical formula, but also in the specialized equipment, the siphon, used to project it, and the training required to handle such a dangerous substance safely and effectively in the heat of battle. The loss of Greek fire means we've lost not just a recipe, but a whole system of ancient chemical warfare technology that played a crucial role in shaping history for several centuries. Its fiery legend continues to burn bright, a testament to a secret well kept, perhaps too well. Number 1. Damascus steel, the legendary blade. The words Damascus steel conjure images of legendary swords, blades so sharp they could supposedly cut a silk scarf, falling upon them, so strong they could cleave through lesser weapons, and so beautiful with their distinctive swirling watery patterns on the surface, known as damask. Originating in the Near East, These blades were encountered by Europeans during the Crusades, 11th to 13th centuries, and quickly gained a fearsome reputation for their superior quality. The original method for producing this incredible steel, particularly the specific type of crucible steel known as Wootz steel from India that was often used, was a closely guarded art that gradually faded into obscurity, with the last true blades likely being forged in the early 19th century. What made authentic Damascus steel so special was its combination of properties. It was hard enough to hold a very sharp edge, yet it was also tough and resilient, not brittle like some other hard steels. The visible patterns, often described as resembling flowing water moire, were not merely decorative. They were a result of the unique internal microstructure of the steel. This microstructure consisted of bands of extremely hard iron carbide particles, cementite, embedded in a softer, more ductile steel matrix, pearlite or martensite. This composite structure gave the blades their remarkable blend of sharpness and toughness. Patterns were unique to each blade, like a metallic fingerprint. The raw material, Wootz steel, was typically produced in India and Sri Lanka in small crucibles. Iron ore, along with carbon-rich materials like wood or leaves, was sealed in a clay crucible and heated for an extended period. This slow heating and cooling process allowed for the formation of the specific carbide structures within the steel ingot. These Wootz ingots were then exported to centers of bladesmithing in the Middle East, such as Damascus in Syria. Though it's debated whether Damascus was primarily a production center or a trading hub for these blades, the forging process itself was an art. The smith had to carefully heat and hammer the Wootz ingot, a process that required incredible skill and precise temperature control. Too much heat or improper forging could destroy the delicate internal structure and the potential for the pattern to emerge. The smiths knew how to work the steel to draw out and enhance these patterns, which became visible after careful grinding, polishing, and etching. Legends speak of secret quenching recipes and rituals that were part of the process. Why was this art form lost? Several factors likely contributed. The specific sources of Indian Wootz ore, which may have contained crucial trace elements like vanadium or molybdenum that aided in the formation of the carbide structures, may have become depleted or inaccessible. Political and economic changes disrupted trade routes. Perhaps most importantly, the specific knowledge of the smiths, the precise temperatures, the forging techniques, the understanding of the raw materials was often passed down orally, from master to apprentice. As the demand for these blades waned with the advent of different types of steel in firearms, and as the old masters died without passing on their full knowledge, the art gradually vanished. Modern metallurgists and bladesmiths have made significant strides in understanding and attempting to replicate Damascus steel. Scientific analysis of surviving blades has revealed the presence of carbon nanotubes and cementite nanowires, which could contribute to the steel's properties. Several artisans can now produce crucible steel with patterns that look very similar to historical Damascus steel, and with excellent mechanical properties. However, debate continues as to whether these modern reproductions perfectly match all the characteristics of the finest antique blades, or if the exact ancient process with all its nuances and intuitive understanding has been truly rediscovered. The mystique of the original watered steel, with its legendary performance and captivating beauty, continues to hold a powerful allure, a shimmering echo of a lost pinnacle of craftsmanship.